Charata or regret is that probably most of you here did not know Rav Weinbach, Yahrtzeit our Rosh Yeshiva, whose Yahrtzeit was Shabbos. Two nekudos that, the main nekuda was that Rav Weinbach was a huge Talmid Chacham. He was shaylet on Shas. He knew Shas backwards and forwards. He was a baki in halacha. And even more than that, the fifth section of Shulchan Aruch, the areas which are not black and white in Shulchan Aruch, that was his ultimate mastery, was over this area. And it's in his schus and Rav Schiller, Yibad L'chaim Tovim, that we have everything we have today. And so I was thinking, I was trying to be misboinin on why he left us, why he left the world over Chanukah. Because in Chanukah, you're not allowed to say hespedim, you're not allowed to say eulogies. So why was it that Rav Weinbach left the world at this time when you can't even eulogize him? So I was thinking one thing is his amazing humility. Rav Weinbach always held himself very simple. He rode the buses like all the other people in Yerushalayim. People looking at him wouldn't know that he's an Adam Gadol. He was a very, very humble person. And he wouldn't want eulogies. He wouldn't want anyone eulogizing him. So he left the world at a time when it's usher to be maspid. But I think there's a second thing. And this is what I'd like to talk about a little bit today. I think the second dimension is that his essence was Torah. Really what defined Rav Weinbach was limud Torah, his own learning, and teaching Torah, which he was so excellent in that area, and harbatzas Torah, spreading Torah. So there's no better way to speak about Rav Weinbach than to share divrei Torah. I think that because there is no hespedim, the only way to keep his memory strong is through divrei Torah. So I'd like to speak out an idea about Chanukah. And there's a lot of discussion on this issue. By Chanukah, we have two major miracles here, right? There was the miracle of the war, the Milchama, which was a major miracle. Major, major miracle. According to historical accounts, there were 1,000 Jews left keeping mitzvahs. That was it. 1,000 Jews. I mean, you're basically talking about Malo Dafna, Arzia Bira, maybe a little bit Shmuel Navi. That's all we had left. We think we're in bad shape today. With Klal Yisrael today, this was much worse. The amount of assimilation, the power of the Greeks, what they did to the Jewish people was unparalleled. 1,000 people making war on the Greek Empire. So imagine today, right? Malo Dafna, Arzia Bira, and a little bit of Shmuel Navi going to go to war against America. Right? That was the world power. What are the odds? So the amount of miracle here is massive. This is a massive miracle that the Jewish people were successful in this war. We have a second miracle. The second miracle is the miracle of the oil. There was enough pure oil to burn for 1 day, and that burned for 8 days. And there's a lot of discussion how the two miracles interact. The Maharal, others discuss how they work together, Meshech Chochmah. But I'd like to take an interesting approach over here to try to, and I think this is very contemporary, to teach us about what Chanukah is about. That if you had to look at it from a purely rational point of view, without a Torah eye, which miracle would you say is greater? The war. The war, 1,000 people taking on the Greek Empire and being victorious. You would say that that's a much greater miracle. And the oil, okay, there was 1 day, it burned for 8 days. It doesn't appear to be on the same stature as the miracle of the war. However, you see from our sages, this entire Chag is D'Rabbanan. It all comes on a rabbinic level. The sages put the emphasis on the oil. Everything, the halachas, my Chanukah, the Gemara asks, talks about the oil. And all the halachas have to do with the oil. What we celebrate is through the oil. Why did Chazal put the emphasis on dafka, the oil? The miracle of the Pach Hashem. So we know that the idea of light is Torah. The idea of light is Torah, and the idea of a ner is a mitzvah. Ner mitzvah Torah or. So somehow this was a struggle between the koyach of Torah and mitzvahs against the Greek idea, which we're going to get into more be'iyun. What did the Greeks stand for? What was their ideology? And why was this a struggle between the light and the Greeks are called by Chazal darkness, which is fascinating. Because the Greeks called themselves enlightened. Right? They felt they were very enlightened people. They discovered mathematics. They had great philosophers. Plato, Aristotle, Socrates. These were giant people. So how could it be Chazal call Yavan darkness? And this was a struggle between light on the one hand. This was Chazal teaching us. Light, Torah and mitzvahs on the one hand. And darkness, Greece on the other hand. The Medrash says like this. The pasuk says, "Va'aretz haysa tohu vavo v'choshech al pnei hatahoim." So the Medrash Rabbah learns that tohu, desolation. Well, there are two types of desolation, tohu vavo. One is Bavel, the Babylonian exile, and the other one was the Median, Paras Madai exile. Choshech, the Medrash says, Yavan, Greece. Chazal call Greece darkness. Why is it darkness? They were such intelligent people. They had so much enlightenment. They lit up the world with their philosophy. The Rambam was so enamored to the philosophy of Aristotle. How could it be that they are called darkness? But the Greeks are called darkness. And the last one, Tahoim, that's Edom. That's the last exile that we're in now. So what's the pshat that the Greeks are called darkness and Chazal putting the emphasis on the light is a symbol of Torah and mitzvahs? What's the struggle here? What was the struggle between these two koiches, right? And really what it comes down to, Chazal are teaching this was not a physical war. This was a spiritual war. This was a war of ideas. This was a war of philosophy, how you look at the world. If it had been a straight physical war, we would have celebrated, the main celebration would be about the military victory. As we see by Purim, the main thing on Purim is the salvation, that we were saved, are physically saved from Haman. But over here, by putting the emphasis on the lights, putting the emphasis on the oil, you see Chazal teaching us something different over here. That wasn't the main thing over here. We mention the war, we do in Al Anisim, we mention it, and when we Lehoidos L'Halel, when we thank and when we praise, we are having kavanah as well on the great military victory, but the emphasis seems to be on the light. This is another Medrash, Medrash in Eicha, which says like this: Im yoma lecha adam, if a man will say to you, Chochma b'goyim, that the goyim have wisdom, ta'amin, you believe that. Torah b'goyim, if someone will tell you that the goyim have Torah, al ta'amin, you don't believe them. So the goyim have Chochma, and we see they have Chochma. The goyim are very wise, right? The computers, the technology, the medicine, music, art, they have tremendous Chochma, the goyim. So we're allowed to believe that. Torah they don't have. So what's the Chochma? What's the Torah? I mean, I always understood, it makes it sound as though Torah is not Chochma. Chochma is wisdom. It makes it sound as though Torah is against, but Torah is the ultimate Chochma. Right? Reishis Chochma Yiras Hashem. So how could it be that we have what's called Torah, they have what's called Chochma, they don't meet, but isn't Torah Chochma? Isn't Chochma Torah? Well, what's going on here? So I think we have to look at the very essence of what Torah is, and the very essence of what Chochma is, to understand the struggle over here. What was the struggle? What was this battle between these two forces? The word Torah, the root of the word Torah is lahoiros, to teach. That's what Torah is. Torah teaches us how to live. It helps us build our midos, it helps us build our character, it helps us give us a direction in which we're going in. Torah is lashon lahoiros, is to teach you how to live. Chachma, no matter which chachma it is, doesn't necessarily teach you how to live. Yeah, a person becomes a great doctor, okay? Excellent doctor, top of his field. Does that mean that he's going to live a moral life? Does that mean he's going to work on his midos? Does that mean that he's going to have a connection with the Kodesh Baruch Hu? No. It means he knows medicine. He's an expert in medicine. But it doesn't necessarily penetrate inside of him. It doesn't go inside. It stays on the outside. Right? So the Goyim have Chokhmah. Great engineers, great computer people, great thought thinkers. They have all these great thinkers. But is it penetrating inside? That's Torah. Torah has to. Again, we're going to talk about this a little more by Eon. Torah has to penetrate on the inside. To be real Torah, it has to penetrate in, it has to change us, it has to transform us, it has to make us into better people. There's a famous medrash, a Yalkut, about Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan was walking with one of his Talmidim. They're walking on the derech. Rabbi Yochanan points over there. He says, see that house? That house was mine. That house was mine. I own that house. And I sold the house so that I could learn Torah. I used the money so I could learn Torah, I could continue learning. That house was mine. Okay, Talmud hears it. Very nice. They continue walking. Says, see that vineyard over there? Right? That vineyard over there was also mine. I sold it to learn Torah. And then he keep walking, and Rabbi Yochanan says, see that field over there? That field was also mine. I sold it so I could learn Torah. So Talmud finally goes, well, okay, what's pshat? You know, we sold everything for Torah. Well, what does it mean? So Rabbi Yochanan says something which is very interesting, lashon. He says, I sold this world which was created in 6 days. And I received the Torah which was given in 40 days. That's a Jewish cup, right? 6 versus 40, good deal. That's by 2, right? So that's what he says. I gave up this world was created in 6 days, and I got the Torah which was given in 40 days. So what's the pshat in this? So I heard a beautiful hezber of this from Rav Shor, who was the Rosh Yeshivat Ohr Somayach in Monsey. He said a beautiful pshat over here. 40 days is how long it takes when a child is formed to be able to recognize a tzura, the form of the child, right? That's, the Gemara says, before 40 days is maya ba'alma, it's only water. After 40 days is a tzura of the child. And so 40 days is what he was saying, that's what creates a human being. I gave up this world, which is only 6 days. I received the Torah, which transforms a human being. How can you compare the two? The field doesn't improve me. The vineyard doesn't improve me. The house doesn't improve me. The Torah transforms you. It creates a human being. It takes a different kind of person, and it takes one person. We see it all the time in yeshiva. Guy will walk in here, very rough diamond, to put it mildly, right? People will walk in here, and they learn Torah a year, 2 years, however long, even 6 months. They're a different human being. It transforms you. That's what Torah is. That's the essence of Torah. Chokhmah doesn't have to change you at all. Doesn't change you at all. Many of you have probably heard this story, but it's a true story, and it's a fascinating story. It illustrates a difference. In the 20th century, there was a great philosopher by the name of Bertrand Russell, right? Big chacham, tremendous chacham. I mean, nobody learns philosophy anymore, but it's very interesting stuff that he produced. And Professor Russell had a problem. He was a brilliant man, but his ethics were not where it should be, right? Seems like he was a married man. He was having a few external affairs over there. And today, if a professor did that, they'd give him Yasher Koyach. They'd say, that's beautiful. It's freedom. You know? But back then, when he did this, the students did not like it. He was a professor of ethics, by the way. Professor of ethics, carrying on outside of marriage. So the students put him on trial. How could it be, Professor Russell? You are a professor of ethics. How could you be doing these kind of things? You're teaching us ethics and you're carrying on like this. So Professor Russell's response was, does a mathematics teacher have to be a triangle? He's a smart man, right? Does an ethics teacher have to be ethical? I'm not ethical. So I'm not so ethical, right? That's Chokhmah. Chokhmah stays on the outside. It doesn't penetrate on the inside. It doesn't transform the person. It doesn't change the person. Aristotle, who, again, was a genius, and the Rambam was so enamored with his philosophy, Aristotle was caught doing things which were not very nice. And they said, Aristotle, where's the great Aristotle? So his answer was, today I'm not Aristotle. Right? So that's a totally different approach to life and wisdom. How we relate to wisdom. How we deal with wisdom. And this is not to say that a Jew can't excel in these areas. A Jew could become a great computer person, he could become a great doctor, he could become a great artist, right? And we've had all of those type of people in our yeshiva here. But the Jewish view is there's something higher than that. There's something above that, which is Torah and a Kodesh Baruch Hu. And everything that we learn and everything that we absorb in the world of Chokhmah is subservient to Kodesh Baruch Hu and subservient to the Torah. And that's really the essence of what this struggle was about. The Greeks believed Chokhmah, that's it, that's an end-all. That's as far as it goes. There's nothing higher, there's nothing above that, there's nothing that Chokhmah is subservient. The end game is Chokhmah, that's it. Because man is the end game. That's what the Greeks believed. The Jews believed it's very good, you can have Chokhmah. You can be a great doctor, why not? You're a great doctor, you're a great philosopher, you're a great computer person in technology. All of that is fine, but there's something higher than that, which is the Torah and which is the Kodesh Baruch Hu, which is over that. The famous story, it was told to me over Chanukah, beautiful story, that just to illustrate how the Torah has to get inside, it becomes in you. It's in your bloodstream. You're breathing it. First of all, it's very interesting. A person who learns Torah is called a Ben Torah. You ever think about this? Very interesting. Only by Jews. Can you imagine by the Goyim, Ben Università? There's no such thing. It doesn't exist. Ben Torah means you reflect the Torah. The Torah is in you. You can see the Torah in the person. The Torah is you look at the person and you see the Torah. It's a very different kind of a thing. There was a big discussion. Probably the Hasidim tell the story the other way around. Yeah, but I'm going to tell a story the way the Litvaks tell the story. That there was a dispute between Reb Chaim Brisker and the Rogatchover. Right? They were having a dispute about wearing glasses on Shabbos. I don't know which position was which, but they had this, now people wear glasses on Shabbos. But back then there was a whole shaila of Hotzah carrying the glasses on Shabbos. So they had this debate. And the Rogatchover, those who know, he had the whole Torah right in front of him. Baal Peh. He knew all the Torah Baal Peh. And they're having this argument. And as Gedolim have arguments in Halacha, the pile of books is rising as they're arguing. And nobody's really getting an edge on the other one. The books are rising higher and higher and higher. And finally, the Rogatchover says, listen, I have a Yerushalmi that proves my point 100%. Okay? So the Rogatchover says over the Yerushalmi, and everyone agrees, hey, that's a riot to the Rogatchover, 100%, he's right. So Reb Chaim doesn't lose a step. He says, bring me the Yerushalmi. In the Westerns, draw, Bring me the Yerushalmi. So they take the Yerushalmi off the shelf. Reb Chaim starts learning the Yerushalmi this way, that way, this way, that way, this way. Finally it comes out exactly the opposite. Even though the Rogatchover knew the Yerushalmi word by word, Reb Chaim learned the Yerushalmi, and it came out exactly the opposite, and everyone agreed Reb Chaim won. That's why I say it's a Litvish story, right? And so everyone agreed Reb Chaim won the debate, and everybody leaves. A few of Reb Chaim's dedicated Talmidim stayed behind. They said, Rebbe, when you asked for the Yerushalmi off the shelf, did you know that Yerushalmi? That you were so confident that you could take on the Rogatchover like that? He said, no, I didn't know the Yerushalmi. But I've learned enough Torah to know that Torah has to be logical. I have enough Torah in me to know that what he was saying was wrong. The Torah gets in you. It gets in your kishkas. It gets in your blood. Right? That was Reb Weinbach. Reb Weinbach, the Torah was so part of him. I guess the word we say in Yiddish, a shtick Torah. He was like a piece of Torah. That's what he was. And the Torah, ideally, if you're learning it the right way, should penetrate you and get inside of you. Now, when you just have a society based on Chokhmah, in that is immorality. Because there's no limit, there's nothing above, there's no Kodesh Baruch Hu above, there's no Torah above. With that will come immorality. We look at the world today, we see the world today is crazy. I was just in Manhattan, right? All you smell there is, right? That's it, Everybody's walking around on drugs. That's where the Western world is today, right? Sad. And snus, and substances, and that's where the world could, with all the Chokhmah. We have all these geniuses, in Silicon Valley coming up with all these amazing technological breakthroughs, and in the medical field, at the same time you have all the immorality. I was once at home, my father had an amazing library, and I saw a book on ancient Greece. So I wanted to have a look what the Greeks were about. So it has all the great philosophers, it has the a synopsis of what they held and what they believed, and then it had the history of that period. Reading the history of that period was 10 times worse than Hollywood today. If you have this tremendous philosophy and mathematics and all these things, if there's not anything over that, if the Torah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not over that, then it falls into decadence. It falls into immorality. And that was the struggle. Chazal putting the emphasis on the oil is to tell us this was not a physical struggle. This was a shita, struggle in shitot, how to look at wisdom, because Torah is wisdom, and how to look at the wisdom of the world. And the Torah view is, yes, it's all very good, it's beautiful, but if there's no ruchnius in there, if a Kodesh Baruch Hu is not there, if the Torah is not there, the Medrash calls it darkness. And that was the struggle. That was the battle between these two. And the Greeks were threatened by the Jews. Because we said, you're very smart people, you're very intelligent people, you have great ideas, but as long as it's not subservient to Hashem, if it's not subservient to the Torah, it's nothing. It's darkness. And that's a threat. And that's why they felt they had to extinguish this Jewish ideology. And that's the pshat in the Medrash. The Medrash, after the Medrash calls the Greeks darkness, the Medrash continues. And it says that the Greeks demanded of the Jews, Kisvu al Keren Ashur, she'en lechem chelik be'elokei Yisrael. Right on the horn of the ox, that you have no portion in the God of Israel. So everyone asks, why the horn of an ox? Why dafka there? They had to write this. Because they were trying, basically, they weren't interested in killing us. They were interested in us leaving the Torah, leaving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, leaving Ruchnius. But why on the horn of an ox? So the simple pshat is, they were saying, who are you? You say that you're holy people, you did the Chet HaEgel. Just like we worship idols, you also worship idols. You did the Chet HaEgel. Right? And that's the idea of the horn of the ox. The Sifsei Chaim says a different pshat here. He says a very beautiful pshat over here. Reb Chaim Friedlander. He says over here that the idea of the horn of the ox, an ox in that society, back then, agricultural society, the ox was a symbol of man's dominion over the natural world. They used the ox for plowing, they used the ox for seeding, they used the ox for harvesting. But all there is the natural world. That's what the Greeks held. This is the natural world, and in this world we have to manipulate it. We have to become doctors, we have to become scientists, we have to become mathematicians. We have to master this world, but that's all there is. There's nothing higher. There's nothing above that. There's nothing that is on a different level than the natural world. That's what they held. And that's why dafkan an ox, which is a symbol of manipulating the natural world, but being bound by the natural world. And that's why when we celebrate Chanukah, it's 8 days. 8 days is, this natural world is 7. The world was created in 7 days. There are 70 nations. There are 49 years in the Shemitah cycle. 7 represents the natural world. 8 is one level above. That's Bris Milah, is on the 8th day. On the Chag of Shavuos is 7 times 7 plus 1, right? The 50th day. So that symbolizes above nature. So Chanukah is that we're celebrating, we're not bound by the natural world. There's something higher than that. There's a Kodesh Baruch Hu over that natural world, and that's manipulating the whole natural world according to his will. And so therefore, this was a whole machloikis here in totally different view of the world. How to look at the world. The Jewish world is, yes, we believe in Chokhmah, we believe most people have to go out and get a job. And they have to have a field, and they have to learn a certain amount of Chokhmah in this world to be able to make it in this world. But the Chokhmah has to be subservient to the Torah and subservient to Kodesh Baruch Hu. Then it can be lifted up, then it can be raised up, then it can be above the 7 and reach the level of 8. And the non-Jewish view, the Greek view was, that's all there is. Sounds kind of familiar, no? That's what we're living with today, right? That's a struggle today. That's a struggle within Klal Yisrael today. Yeah? That's why the biggest threat to those, let's call them the Hellenists or secularists that we have in this country, is the Baal Tshuva. That's the biggest threat to them. Because the Baal Tshuva knows their Chokhmah, he's learned their mathematics, he's learned their engineering, he's learned their medicine. He says, that's not enough, fellas, that's just not enough. There's something higher than that. There's the Torah, there's the Kodesh Baruch Hu. We're going through the same thing. There's no more contemporary holiday that we celebrate in the Jewish cycle than Chanukah. Because we're going through the exact same thing. We're going through the exact same thing today. The biggest threat that you'll find to the non-Jewish world is if you have somebody like Rav Gottlieb Shlita, who knows all of their chokhmah, who's mastered all of their ideas. And he says, okay, very nice, but so what? Is there more than that? Is that all you have to give? Is that all you have to bring to the table? That's the biggest threat. And that's what the Jews back then, why the Greeks were so threatened by the Jews and what they stand for. I guess our job now is to learn Torah as Torah. To learn it as, what's in it, how can I change? How can I better myself? How can I be a better human being by what I'm learning? I don't want to be the same old mensch, then it's a chokhmah ba'alma. If a person's learning, how can I affect it? How can I change myself? How can I grow? How can I be a better human being? That's Torah. Just a suggestion, right? I'm making a suggestion. I always do. That's my style. We have two areas of Torah, right? We have the Gemara and Halacha, and we have Limud HaMusar. So Limud HaMusar is dedicated towards personal growth, towards character growth. And it shouldn't be the whole day. Most yeshivas, it's a half an hour. I know in the center where I came from, we put a little more emphasis. We did 45 minutes a day. And it affects a person. It puts the whole rest of the day in perspective. It's like putting spice in a food. You put spice in a food, if you put too much, it ruins the food, right? The main thing is the food itself. A little bit of that spice changes the food, makes it more tasty. If we want the Torah to penetrate, that helps. The Limud HaMusar helps. Again, it shouldn't be the whole day. Most of the day has to be the Gemara, has to be the Shulchan Aruch. But part of the day should be dedicated to this. And if we can integrate our learning, if the Torah can become part of us, if the Torah can penetrate our being, if it brings us closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then the lights, the effect of those lights are being felt even now. Because that's really what the struggle was about. The Chafetz Chaim understood that this was a spiritual struggle, and we went to war. By Purim was a physical struggle, and we didn't go to war. We waited for a Siman Min Shamayim before we fought back. But by Chanukah we went out to war. And the Chafetz Chaim said when the Bolsheviks took over with the communist ideology, right? He had charata, they didn't go to war. He should have gone to battle. You see from the Chashmonayim, when there's a spiritual threat against the Jewish people, you have to go out. You have to go out and fight. So we're in a struggle, we're still in a struggle, and we have to try to make the Torah real, try to make it part of us, to be a ben Torah. That when they look at us, they see the Torah in us, they see it in the way we live, they see it in the way we speak, the way we act, the way we carry ourselves in our midos. And Metz Hashem, that way we can bring nachas to the Rabbeinu Shalom, to Rav Weinbach and Shemayim, and follow in his derech, because he was the quintessential ben Torah. And we should all follow, we're like his spiritual children, we should all follow in his footsteps.
Thank you for listening to this Ohr Somayach production. To find out more and to partner in our mission, please visit ohr.edu.